Hi, and welcome back to Dusting History. Today I have an image from Frank Meadow Sutcliffe called Sunshine and Shadow. I've already cleaned and colorised a couple of his photographs, but I've never recorded them. And I was particularly drawn to this one because of its composition, and also because it reminded me of an artist who I've followed and loved for many years. Ivan Aivašovsky's paintings are something I've just always admired. I love the way he's handled water, and I love the way he handles the weather and the light, and the way the light transmits through waves. And so I'm going to try to bring his colour aesthetic and this image together in a way that's pleasing. It's the plan anyway. Now, unlike some of Sutcliffe's photographs that I've found, this one is in pretty good nick. The only problem I have with it is it's quite grainy. So using the neural networks in Photoshop, I'm just doing a quick adjustment to try and knock some of the grain out of the image. Then, taking the colour out, reducing it to black and white, I'm going to do a levels adjustment to try and find a black and white point. Funnily enough, I just for some reason tried another neural filter, and it actually did a really good job of taking the grain out even further. I think it's because I converted it to black and white and then did the levels adjustment, but it really did a great job of suppressing a lot of the grain. After that, with the remove tool, I'm just going to remove all the dots and damage and spots. There isn't a lot, it's actually a pretty good, as I said, a pretty good quality image. Also leveraging the patch tool to heal some of the area up the top. Now, I love the way the light's shining through that sail, so I'm going to try and find some pictures of sky that have the sun in a similar position and poking through clouds. And just here's a couple that I've found, and I'm going to put them on a colour layer and just see if I can generate a base palette. Basically, what I do is throw a lot of colours at the image and just see what sticks. Copying and pasting the water, just trying to get some colour across the whole canvas. And while I've been doing that, I've been thinking about that light transmitting through the sail there and wondering what kind of look or what kind of colour temperature that sail might have. So I found some reference online, and I was just, as you can see, looking for sailing ships with the sun in the right part of the sky. And with those gathered and a bit of a mental plan, a very small mental plan, I'm actually going to start painting. So this is now painting a colour layer on top of the cut and pasted skies that I put down, and I'm sampling directly off those same skies. Pretty much, as you can see, I'm using the middle image as my basis. I'm trying to think about how the clouds might layer up, how they might block the light, how light might transmit through to the other side, and how the light might illuminate the rims of the clouds. I also like the way the distance stacks up, so you get different bands of colour as you march off towards the horizon there. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm just trying to cover the canvas with colour. Largely this palette is going to be underpinning everything I paint, so I'm just trying to make sure there are no crazy hard edges or things I missed. Typically when you colorise an image, the paler the luminance of the image, the less it accepts colour. So you can see the boardwalk there, or the pier. I thought I might try and put some wood texture or some variation on. And this is interesting, you'll see me push this out like that, and when I turn it to colour mode, it just goes grey with some faint pink little lines. You can see that's not really working out for me, so I deleted that. A lot of what I do is trial and error, to be honest. Now onto the sails, which I think for me are the most interesting part of the image. I think, like, as you can see in this reference, where they're turned towards us, they should be more blue or more canvas colour, and where they're facing the sun or where they're in front of the sun, they should have more of that transmissive light that sort of glows them orange. So I'm trying to think about how many sails are layered on top of each other, what parts of the image I think are facing the sky and not the sun, and then what parts of the sails are being affected by the sun and becoming translucent. And as you can see by the mast running up the centre, which has a paleness to it, it indicates that there is light scattering behind the sail. There is light catching on the back of that mast there, so there stands to reason that some of that original canvas colour of the sails would be present in the image. And this bottom piece of sail that's kicked up towards us, see how it's got a bright edge? That edge would really be reflecting light from the pier back up onto it. It would be illuminated indirectly by the light from the pier. And I want to really highlight where those two sails crisscross in the background, so that one of them is catching a lot of the light from the sun, but the other one is in front of it or between us and it. So I'm trying to keep it more grey-blue, like it's shadowed by the other sail. I really don't want this image to appear too monochrome, so I'm going to try and put some extra colour onto the boats. I'm looking for anything that will actually make the image look like it's got a more complex colour palette. So I think a blue-grey kind of hull for this ship would be great. Sneaking in some reds, sneaking in some blues here and there are all going to be beneficial. And being a glutton for punishment, I'm going to try the old pier trick again with a different piece of wood. This time it's got more sort of sympathetic colours, so I'm hoping it'll give me a little more complex palette. And you can see there it's dropped down some greens and some rusty colours, and you know, it's just basically made the image feel a lot more complex all of a sudden with very little effort on my behalf. In the middle of the painting, you can sort of see where there's a shaft of light that's hitting the pier, and it's also going to mute the colours of the ships behind it. So I'm just trying to find a colour that I think would kind of work to sort of keep on top of everything, just, you know, mixed back to like 20%, so that everything gets this faint haze of yellowed light on it. So I'm going to shut up and paint for a minute, but before I do, just a message that I'd really appreciate your support, and if you could like and subscribe if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it. As I've mentioned in other videos, I really like when you get a bright light source and it terminates with a hard shadow. You get that really intense little bit of colour on the edge, and you can see that little patch of light on the pier there. I'll go in a sec with an orange brush and put like a little bit of orange around the rim of the area where the shadow and the highlight meet. And I think what it does is just gives the image a little bit more pop. It makes it feel a bit more like a contemporary photograph. Not that I'm planning to get to a completely photographic result, but it's a nice little thing that makes the sunlight feel that little bit more golden. Now in a sec you'll see I'll put a colour lookup layer in, and that basically brings what's called a LUT or a lookup table to the image, and you get a selection of different photographic stocks and different kind of looks. And what it really does well is it makes the image, well, it actually changes the kind of the temperature of the image quite a bit. And you can see here I'm just stepping through a few, and this one I really like. It's taken a lot of the warmth out of the image, but playing with it at a low level has just sort of kissed a little bit more of the blues and a little bit more of the complexity into it, and the whole image doesn't look quite as monochromatic when I put that on. So I'm going to keep a little bit of that in there, and I've baked it down now. Next, I started looking for any little piece of reference of sailing ships on a similar angle, and what I'm going to do here, it's pretty broad, but I'm just going to put them little bits and pieces down all over the place, and then change all this to color mode, so I'm only affecting the color. I'm not pasting any of this down like in any photographic way, but I'm trying to bring a more complex palette to the image. That's what I'm trying to do the whole time here. I'm going to, when you see when I stamp that down, it's put a whole bunch of blues and reds and ochres and weird colors inside the boat. And then what I'll do is paint a lot of that away, but keep it here and there, just poking through, just so that whilst you can't tell exactly what's what, there's a sense of something different being in the boat, and it's all not just the same orange color. And the same goes for whatever this thing is in the middle. Just trying to hint cooler spots and little rusty spots and anything I think that might actually give it a little bit of colour variation. The brightness of the foreground's always bugged me just a little bit, sort of down on the bottom right hand side where the pier is really pale. So I'm just going to try and put a little bit of a levels adjustment there and just knock down the luminance of it just a touch. And now when I'm at the point where I can't tell what I'm doing anymore, something I like to do occasionally is flip the image over like this. And you see it in a completely different way, and you can start to see things that you missed before. So things that I thought were fine before now really look out of place. So now I'm going to do some adjustments there. And that extends to continuing to clean up the image, going to the back black and white base image and basically getting rid of some of the little blemishes and things that I've actually missed the first time around when I was cleaning. I also think the foreground's a bit too green for the kind of colour temperature of the rest of the image, so I'm going to try and knock a bit of that off the pier and maybe cool it off a little bit, or add a little bit more of the sky colour here and there. And after all that, I think I'm done. Such a great image. I haven't gone super colourful with it. I've tried to keep it relatively muted. And I'm pretty happy with the result. Once again, thanks very much for coming along, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.